today has a name. And any day that has a name means it's a special kind of a day. It means it's a day marked for something specific. And ever since the beginning of the church remembering Good Friday, it's been filled with things like sadness and mourning and fasting and prayer. And for good reason, because that reflects the tone and the events of Good Friday. In the 4th century, there was a document called the Apostolic Constitution, which described the kinds of ways that people ought to live if they're trying to faithfully follow Jesus at certain times during the year and throughout their lives. And as it describes Good Friday, it describes Good Friday as a day of mourning, not full of joy. And Ambrose, who was an archbishop in that same time frame, he described the practices of Good Friday having to do with a sense of bitterness, not joy. And if we're following the calendar in the ways that the Bible describes and the gospel stories describe the life of Jesus, this Good Friday is a culmination of so many things that the Gospels have led up to. Jesus talked so much about the fact that he would suffer for people, that part of his mission in following God faithfully, his Father faithfully, was to end up suffering. And so it's no wonder that so many of the practices and the things that we do on Good Friday are wrapped up with that suffering. We do things to help ourselves feel and understand and know a little bit more about what Jesus felt, even if we can't completely know what Jesus felt on that original Good Friday. So we do things like give things up in this season leading up to Good Friday and Easter. We deny ourselves certain things that are joyful or comfortable. We go into lots of periods of reading and reflection and prayer. We change our routines so that we're not doing things that are quite as joyful, perhaps, as we would at other times of the year. But consider that Good Friday was also quite a busy day for Jesus. When he awoke on Good Friday, he was brought before the authorities. He was tried. He was sentenced. He was flogged and beaten. He was given a cross to carry through a parade of people. And then he was mounted and nailed on that cross, and it was there hours later that he died. That's all one day. That's all Good Friday. Think about who was there that day. At the beginning, there were the authorities who he was tried by. There were the people who saw and judged what was happening from the public space. There were the people who affirmed that Jesus is the one who should be crucified. There were crowds of people who were cheering. There were crowds of people who were probably jeering. There were supporters of Jesus. There were antagonists against Jesus. There were some people who rendered Jesus aid. So Jesus did not endure Good Friday alone. Jesus was surrounded by people throughout Good Friday. It was a very public day for Jesus, which is intriguing because most of our practices of Good Friday have to do with individual, personal, reflective, by myself kinds of things, which are in no way bad. They're great ways for us to focus and reflect and understand more and internalize how Jesus felt and what happened on those days. We need those reflections and those practices that are by ourselves in the quiet of our time. But in the balance of that, it was a highly public day for Jesus. And what if it's more of a highly public day for us? What would it look like on Good Friday? Not just to reflect personally and individually, which is needed, but also to engage publicly with the fact that it is Good Friday. So often people ask us when they meet us or talk to us, how are you? What's going on? What are you doing? We would have a very different answer on a day like today about how are you? What are you doing today? Than we might on other days. But let's not be afraid to engage with other people on Good Friday. It's not necessarily a day we have to be silent, but it could be a day when we're able to describe and speak out about the things that we're doing today and why we feel the way we feel and why we're doing the things that we do. So may Good Friday be, for you, a valuable experience of understanding Jesus, both personally and publicly.